Hi there, and welcome to Draw With Me. I'm Danny Gregory, and each Thursday we get together and we hang out and we chat and we draw something. It's always a surprise as to what it's going to be. Surprise to me sometimes too. But I hope that you are ready to do some drawing. Let me quickly tell you what we're going to be doing today. First of all, we are going to be drawing a kitten. A kitten, or as they say today, a kitten. And you can draw it with whatever you'd like. I would recommend a pen and some paper. But if you want to bring in other materials, please do. We're going to just draw one subject today. We're going to spend probably, maybe half an hour drawing it after we've done some chatting. So feel free to gather up any art supplies you want to, and we'll start in a couple of minutes. Thanks for being here. And while you're waiting to begin, subscribe to this channel, and that way I can remind you every Thursday, or YouTube can remind you every Thursday, that we will be getting together again, and it's time to do some drawing. So again, a kitten, pen and paper, whatever else you want to use, it's your choice. So good. Well, thank you so much for being here. Got to lubricate the mechanism here. I wanted to tell you about what we did last week. It was kind of a crazy assignment. Basically, what we did, if you didn't get a chance to be here, is I put up a picture of a person. We spent 30 seconds looking at that person, and then we took the picture away, and we spent several minutes drawing that person, what we could remember of the person. I struggled with it. I heard various things from various people saying it was a great challenge. It was difficult. It was hard, but they loved doing it. Some people said it sucked, and I was probably among them. But yes, let's have a look at what we did. It was pretty phenomenal. Pretty amazing, right? Just so many different approaches, different styles, different memories of what we were drawing. It was really a great opportunity to stretch. I've been thinking about it ever since we did it, whether it was too much or not. You tell me whether you thought, oh boy, that was tough. But anyway, it motivated me to think, you know what? Let's just draw something cute and fun and easy for a change. We don't have to always be pushing ourselves. We can just relax and have fun drawing. That's really the point of this whole exercise, right? So, yes. So let me just see what some of you have been saying in the chat, because I don't always get a chance to look that over. So yes, let's have a look. So Chris likes the idea of adding color to the background. Yeah. So what I did in my example was I just covered the paper beforehand with a little bit of tone, watercolor, just let it dry. And that way you just have a line drawing, but it has a bit of energy to it and a bit of tone. So that's nice. Swaggy says, I wonder why my drawings never get on the show. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I'd love to see your drawings. Are you sharing them in one of multiple places that we have? On Facebook, or on Instagram, or in the schoolyard if you're a member of the Sketchbook School community. In either of those cases, you have to just put the letters hashtag SBS Draw With Me. That's what we go and look for. So we go across all these different platforms and we gather up whatever people have put up there. So if you have done those things and for some reason that didn't work out, let me know. Connie, it's her birthday. That's so great. Congratulations, Connie. And I'm glad that we get the honor of hanging out with you today. I hope that your drawing today is a good gift to yourself. Sherry, coming from Tucson. Welcome, Sherry. I'm here in Phoenix, so not far away, but I'm looking forward to hanging out with you and drawing. And John Harrison in England, where it is damp. It's autumn there. Here in Phoenix, alas, it is not damp, but I think it's going to go over 100 again today, which is kind of insane. Norjo in Hamburg, willkommen. And Rachel is excited about kittens, so that is really nice. And Vandana says that they have a grown kitten currently weighing down. A grown kitten, I like that idea. I have a grown puppy here at home. So, good, well, thank you, and it's nice to chat with you briefly. And Anna from Poland, fantastic. Good, well, it is... Towel says you could do multiple kittens on one page if you want. Just base it off the one reference image for many kittens. Great idea. Draw kittens from your imagination. Or if you want to, go and look for some reference while we're focusing on this one picture. So, all right, good. And Laura likes the new show format. Yes, I think it's easier to kind of set you up, let you know that we're going to be doing something. And rather than just springing it on you, it seems a bit more reasonable. So, good. So let us begin. Let's begin by talking about today's sponsor, which is Winsor and Newton. And Winsor Newton is, of course, a longtime supporter of Sketchbook School and of Draw With Me. And they also make so many products that I love. Their markers, their watercolors, their gouache, and their drawing ink. If you've never used drawing ink, you're going to see me use it today. It's something that I really enjoy using, and it has lots of different applications. You can put it on with a brush, you can put it on with a dip pen, you can mix it like watercolor. It comes in lots of different colors, and it is just, you can write with it, of course, and I find that it has a quality that's different from watercolor. The colors are in some ways brighter. It's more transparent, I find. But I really love being able to draw and paint with the same exact color and write as well, so that it all kind of pulls together. So I really like working with these drawing inks, and we're going to be giving away a set of them today to somebody who would like to get them. Well, hopefully you'd like to get them if you get them. If you don't like to get them and we give them to you, well, that would be a problem. So here's what I would ask you to do. If you're interested in getting these drawing inks, write to us at drawwithme, or DWM drawwithme at sketchbookschool.com. Email us and send us your U.S. mailing address. We're sponsored by Windsor and Newton, which is an English company, but we're sponsored by their American division, and so therefore we can only give it away to people who have a U.S. mailing address. And just tell us, if you'd like, tell us a bit about what interests you about this, because certainly we will be moved to select a winner based on your enthusiasm for this particular new product. So, yes, and JJ's pointing out that the packaging is so iconic. It's true. They change the packaging periodically. They use different incredible illustrators to make the little drawings that go on the boxes and the labels. I love that about it. So yes, R.K. Hogman is getting a little jolt of nostalgia over these things. They are really great, and they're enduring classics, I would say. But I feel like they have so many ways to use them, and they take some experimentation to master that. So Hanya asks, how do I decide what kind of art medium I'll be using to draw? That's an interesting question. And, in the case of today, of course, Winsor Newton sent me these drawing inks and asked if I would use them. So that's what I'm going to be doing. And I'm happy to do it. But a lot of times it has to do with the subject. How do I feel that I want to represent this? Is it a watercolor kind of a thing? Or is it a colored pencil sort of a subject? Those sorts of things come into my mind. Sometimes I just feel like working with a particular medium. And I just say, you know what? I really like the feeling of a dip pen on paper with a brightly colored ink, and that's what I want to work with today. A lot of times I have a go-to process, which is I'll start with something like this, which is a technical pen, in this case made by Edding. And I'll start with a technical pen and I'll draw that, and then I'll add some watercolor on top of it, and sometimes I'll add some colored pencil on top of the watercolor. That's kind of like a pretty basic process. Sometimes I'll use a brush pen. Sometimes I'll use a Winsor Newton watercolor markers. I like to have lots of stuff around me, easily accessible. Don't have to go digging around in desk drawers. I have little carts here that have all my art supplies on them. So they're just sitting right by my desk, and I can get to work on whatever, and I have them. I don't have to worry about losing the moment of inspiration because I'm digging around for art supplies. And I also don't like shoving art supplies away where they'll dry up and, they'll never get used. So keeping them handy, keeping them out is great. If you happen to have a room like I do where I make art, that's all the easier. But you can also have things like a little cart or a little, I have a little box that has drawers in it that I store my stuff in. But keep it available, and that way you will be able to grab something without having to root around for it. All right. Sandy says that they have an embarrassment of riches of notebook, but I dedicate one to draw with me until it is filled up. I like that. All right. Atomic Elf asks if they're fountain pen friendly or just dip pen. I honestly don't know. These bottles are, it is a water-based ink, so it might be. I would go to the Winsor Newton website and look it up, make sure. I know that the calligraphy inks, which are not water-based, are not really ideal for putting into a fountain pen. You want to have something that is diluted with water so it doesn't gum up your pens. Okay. Deb has a huge dresser drawer full of art supplies, not enough for everything. I know the feeling. I have a shelf here of stuff. But again, keeping it handy, keeping it accessible. Don't bury it. And try it out. That's another thing I do, is I'll make something like this, which is a little card that I have for each of my kind of sets of art supplies. And it shows me all the colors. And so when I sit down to draw with my inks, I have this by my side so that I know, okay, these are the colors I have available to me. And it, again, just makes it handier, and you're not wondering what the effects will be because you've done some time experimenting. That's a good thing to do with new materials. Experiment. All right, enough jabbering. Let's look at our kitty. Now that's a cute cat. I'm not a huge cat enthusiast, but I have to say that is a cute cat, and hopefully you will figure out something cute to do with it. All right, so here I have, as I said, my card with my colors on them. I have all my bottles here. And one thing I do here is because I have them sitting in a shelf on my cart, I see them from the top down. So I put a little piece of tape there, artist tape, and I put a drop of the ink on it. And that way I can look at it and immediately go, okay, that's the scarlet. Because otherwise I'm just looking at a bunch of black things and I'm having to pull each one out to look. Fortunately, they have really great labels, as I said, and that makes it, just reminds you of what you're going to have at hand. Okay, so how are we going to approach this kitty? How do you want to do it? I'm thinking that I want to start with kind of a light sketch. A sketch that I'm not going to do it with a pencil. I'm going to do it with this brush. It's a Winsor Newton synthetic sable brush, which I'm big fan of too. And I'm going to take a little vessel here. It's a little porcelain dish. And I'm going to open Pete Brown. This is the color here, Pete Brown. Sounds like he was a football player. He used to play for England, Pete Brown. So I put in a little bit of it, a little bit of Pete Brown. And now I'm going to just dilute it. Because what I'm planning to do is I'm just going to do kind of a light sketch of this cat. So let me just move my camera higher so you can see the whole page. And so let's just get into it. I'm just going to do sort of the shape of his head, which is kind of roundish. Now, I want to be careful, though, because I only have so much paper. I don't want to run out of paper. So let me just do a quick measuring. So what I'm doing is I'm taking my brush like that, and I'm holding my finger because I'm going to measure that cat. I want to see how big is its head relative to its body, relative to its feet. So it's basically 1/3 head, 1/3 body, 1/3 feet. So I'm good. I have room that I'm going to be able to fit him all in. And then I have his ears, of course, on top as well. So that's sort of the basic idea. And his head it's not quite a square. It's a bit wider than it is tall, which is more or less what I've done. I'm going to adjust this. That's why I'm doing it really light, because I'm going to come back and you'll see, I'll keep fiddling with this. But generally this is like, okay, there's ears up here. There's another ear here. This ear is like a little bit more set back. Like that. And his face is a little rounder. Actually, the bottom of it is fairly straight. It's fairly straight. And then he has like this little bit of neck underneath him. And then the shoulder. So the shoulder is kind of lining up with the outside part of his head here. And then this part of his shoulder is kind of more or less straight. Coming down there. And then, as I said, I'm going to measure his head again, because that measurement of the head is this part of the head. If I go down below the neck, this is about where his chest and his legs intersect. So I'm going to do that. And yeah, that's more or less right. And then his feet come down here. So his feet again are, measuring that again, about the same as his chest. So I'm just about there. Okay, so that's more or less right. Put it a little high on the paper, but whatever. And then his back haunch kind of comes out here like that. And he has a little foot sticking out here. And then he has something going on down here. Can't really see much of it. And then there's this tail, which is not too long. How long is that tail? It's about half the length of the foot. So that's more or less right. So as you can see, this is just pretty faint. And what I'm thinking I want to do is I kind of want to paint the whole thing in sort of blocks of diluted ink, watering, what do I call it? A solution of water and ink. And then I want to add another layer on top of that of lines in that same color, or maybe in a range of different colors. So now let's look at the eyes. So the eyes are pretty much in the center, and sort of like that. And then his other eye is about over here, looking at where, again, I'm constantly looking around, and I'm seeing like, okay, this inside line of his eye is just a little bit over where the ear is, and that's correct. So that's more or less where they are. And then his nose, such a cute little nose, is just, I'm not sure if I want to place the nose yet. I want to just make sure I have more of a sense of the structure of his face. But that nose is, I'm pretty sure it's around here. And then there's a little tiny thing there, and then his mouth. What do you think? It seems pretty good. This ear comes down, definitely comes down more there. So you see how I'm constantly adjusting, re-examining, adding new layers. I'm not erasing. I'm not trying to hide the fact that I have done a range of observations. I'm just trying to, I don't want the earlier calculations to overwhelm my later ones. Like I want to sort of have a bit more confidence as I get closer. But this is pretty much it, and I'm probably going to continue to adjust it as I go. Seems reasonable? So yeah. Now I'm going to just take some more of this diluted ink, and I'm just going to block him in. I'm going to block in some of these bits of darker fur. I'm not going to worry about the stripes yet. We'll come back to that. And yeah, it's fortunate that he has these color blocks on him, because they operate as landmarks that show you where stuff is. And then his patches on his face, he has this line that comes down here. Now his whiskers, I'm not going to worry about the whiskers right now. They are a prominent thing, and they do matter. But I think I'm going to deal with those later on. I'll figure that out. You could try and like paint around the whiskers. I don't think it'll work very well. So I'm not going to do that. But right now I just want to kind of have a sense of him, of just his overall structure, and see if I can make him feel like this is a reasonable representation of the bits of him. What's nice about having some confidence in your initial setup is then you can kind of go to town and experiment more with the subsequent layers, because you're building on a platform that that is reasonably solid and reliable. So yeah, that's his eyes are the thing that I'm going to probably deal with much later, because they matter a huge amount. I mean, his expression is all about his eyes and that sort of vulnerability. And it's tempting, because you say, well, I want to know that he's really going to have the right expression, that he's going to be cute. So let me just quickly rush in and get that. But I'd rather wait. Until I know. So what makes him a kitten versus a cat is the size of his head relative to his body. It looks kind of frail, little frail body. And so I think I've achieved that. I think my cat right now looks less vulnerable, looks a bit more solid, but that's going to change. I may or may not be able to actually totally capture his expression, but I don't want I don't want to jinx myself by saying that yet. But all right, so as I said, I'm using the peat brown, and I'm seriously diluting it. This is what peat brown looks like in full up. Full up. So you can see it is not as wimpy as it looks right now, but I think it's smart to dilute it. So next what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a dip pen, and I'm going to tape my bottle of ink, and I'm going to move it to the side so I don't splatter ink all over the drawing. And I dip it in, and I've got some ink now here. And I'm going to start to just tighten up lines because I feel pretty confident about my placement. So I can go in and I can start to tighten up these lines, make them more prominent. I think I'm going to bring in other colors besides this peat brown over time. But for now, I want to continue to use it because he's not really brown. He's sort of gray, right? But there's certainly a lot of colors in his fur, and I like that about it. When you get this kind of a washed out drawing like this, it looks sort of Chinese or Japanese brush painting. I was just thinking about brush paintings of cats in sumi ink. It can be really beautiful. Sweet. So I'll decide how much of this hatching I want to do. Do I want to draw every single hair on this cat? No, probably not. But I do want to suggest his fur. You know, that he's got this texture to him. And there's also, like, if you look at the shape of these kind of calico patches around him, they are not really hard. He's not just black and white. He's not just hard edged. There's definitely some kind of gradation in there. So I want to sort of capture that. But again, I don't feel like I need to do everything. And I am trying to keep these lines more or less parallel, because that's sort of, his fur is kind of neat like that. But then you have like an area like in here. I don't really want to add too much detail, but I want, so here it is as if the fur is kind of emanating from this spot between where his eyebrows would be. And I want to be reasonably consistent, but I don't have to be too mechanical in the distance between each line and the next. But I sort of want to radiate out. I don't want to just sort of scritchy scratch and go in all kinds of different directions with his hair. You know, and I could decide to not do the whole thing. I could just do parts of his face like this if I wanted to. You know, just do individual sections. You'd still get the idea that he's covered with lots of little hairs. I'm also looking for the darker shapes. You see how there's this line that goes from the side of his eye down there? And I'm also probably going to want to think about a little bit of striping that he has. It's not super prominent, but he does have striping, and the stripes are, I could do it with a second color. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll take a darker color, or maybe I'll mix this nut brown with black, create an even darker color. Now look at his ears. I'm going to go around this patch of white fur here. I'm just going to leave that blank. And I'm just going to be really drawing the shadows. But I'm using the dip pen to give the edge of that fur. So I'm not drawing the white fur in his ears. I'm drawing the negative space, which is to say the space behind those white hairs. And, you know, I might go over this whole thing again with another diluted layer. See how I feel like I might want to just darken things up without having to go full on hatching. See, like in this area, like I feel like it needs to be darker in here, but I don't necessarily want to make that darkness out of lines. And of course, there's these whiskers that are going to cover all of this. So I'm drawing kind of what's behind those whiskers there. When I first started working on this, I was thinking maybe I'll just make him lots of different colors. But now I'm pretty happy with the way that this is working in just one color. I think it's interesting when you make a drawing, you kind of have a vision in your mind of what it's going to be like when you start. And you could just execute that. You know, you could just say, all right, I've got a roadmap. I'm going to just follow it. But I think it's more interesting, or the way I approach it at least, is to have an adventure that takes you in lots of different unexpected directions. There might be little side roads that you take that you didn't necessarily anticipate when you set out. That's part of the fun. So don't feel like you have to have blocked everything out in advance. Leave room for discovery and serendipity and chance. I think that's true of kind of any creative project, is that you want to leave room for happy accidents and for discoveries and readjustments, because you can't possibly know everything you're going to want to do in advance. And frankly, if you did, it would be pretty dull. The actual making would be pretty dull. Now this tail is a bit problematic because it's a photo of a tail, and that photo is out of focus. So what do I do about that? I could just paint it in soft layers of diluted ink, but I haven't really done that anywhere else. I don't know that I want to necessarily acknowledge that this is based on a photo. Do you know what I mean? I'm not doing, in a way, I'm doing a drawing of a photo of a cat, not of a cat itself, but I don't necessarily know that I want to make that the point. So I'm also at the point now where I'm kind of going beyond the photo, and I'm just making decisions based on what I feel like doing. So like at first when I started, that was another decision I changed my mind about. When I first started, I thought, I'm not going to make any outlines in this dip pen. I'm just going to use it for hatching, and I'm going to allow the blocks of tone to be the things that indicate the edges. But now I've changed my mind about that, and that's why I put these lines around his ears, because I thought, that's not what I want to do anymore. I don't mind having a bit of a hard edge there. I don't necessarily want to draw all the way around him, but there I feel like it's okay. It might be in part because there are these little stray hairs that are sticking up here. They're making me think that. Now, what do I do about down here where it's basically white, but you can see that there's bits of, there are lines that are running along here. Do I draw all those lines? To be accurate, maybe I would, but it just doesn't feel like that's what I want to do. I want to leave this feeling soft and pure. afraid if I sort of start drawing those little folds in the fur there, it'll go from being something that feels like a kitten to sort of too accurate. Sometimes accuracy is not your friend. I've been listening to this interview with Werner Herzog, the German director. He's also a writer. He's also an actor. And he was talking about the nature of truth. I think particularly when it comes to art, but in general. And he was saying, there's a difference between facts and the truth. And what he meant to say was, he said, the example that he gave was, he said, you could look up somebody's name in the phone book and, say there's a John Smith. You look up his name in the phone book and there's 200 John Smiths. And one of them lives at, 57 Maple Street. But that fact, that information that you've gotten from the phone book about him doesn't really tell you anything about him. It's a fact, but it's not really the truth about him. The fact of his name, the fact of his location. So yes, it's a fact, but there's a lot of other things about him that will give you more of a sense of the truth about him. And the same is true in stories, that knowing every single detail doesn't necessarily tell you the story, that sometimes there are other elements in it that actually convey the truth in a more powerful and useful way. It's a kind of a complicated idea, I know. And as I said, I just listened to him yesterday. I need to think a bit about it some more because it is sort of interesting. But I think it's true of drawing as well, which is you can do a drawing that you capture every single hair on this kitten's body, but it won't necessarily be the truth about this kitten. It's not inaccurate, but it isn't the whole truth. And the whole truth is really more where art can get you. So I think I'm going to let this sit and dry, let these hatches dry, and now I'm going to work a bit on the eyes. Yeah, I've come to that point. So I'm thinking maybe I'll mix a color. So I've got this sunshine yellow, which unfortunately I kind of screwed up when I put it here. It's not really that dark, but I'm going to mix a little bit of the sunshine yellow in with that brown. It's not a bad color. But I think I'm going to put in a bit of the peat brown in there as well. Yeah, sort of an amber color. Okay. All right. Ding, dang, dong. It's going to start drawing again. Well, that's good. I'm so glad. I hope you have a good time. And, oops, you see there? Dot. Imperfection. Thank you, Ding Dang Dong, for sharing that. I like your name. So, just putting, you see there's definitely layers of color in his eyes. And then there's a highlight, so I definitely want to leave that highlight, the reflection, open. And I'll put in his pupils afterwards. So for now, he looks a bit like a zombie, but that's okay. See, the reflection here is bigger. His eyes are curved. The eyeball is curved, so the highlight isn't necessarily the same in each eye. But okay. So Now what about this little nose? I'm thinking vermilion. Vermilion or scarlet? This is scarlet. It's very pink. Might be a little bit too pink. So let's see it, test it. Scarlet. Tiny bit of scarlet there. And I might just put in a little tiny bit of that amber from his eyes. See how those two work together. And then I'm going to do a little test of it there. I think it's a little browner than that. Again, I'm not trying to perfectly duplicate it. I just don't want him to have like a ridiculously pink nose, like he's been out drinking or something. So his nose is basically like a little triangle. And then he has a little tiny bit, you can see a little tiny bit of his mouth in there. So I'm going to let this dry, and then I'll draw his nostrils on top of that. And some of this it's drier. Still not fully dry though, so I don't want to go too far and ruin it, but I definitely do want to go in there and get a bit more shadow like this. See? So you see how I'm able to paint on top of these lines and they still stay lines, but that's because they're pretty much dry. If I was smart, I would let them dry more, but I kind of want to get on with it. So we'll see. So this is allowing me to put a bit more tone and not just have the cross hatching be all the tone. But can you see, as I said to you earlier, that when you use these drawing inks, you're using the exact same color to do your lines and to do your tone. You can see the benefit of that it's like it's all going to match. It's not going to look like, oh, those are pen lines. It's all going to feel like it came from the same place. And so you can do something like this where you're showing the big blocks of color, and then you're also showing that it's made up of individual hairs. You can do both at the same time. You don't have to choose between one way of representing it and the other, because it'll all match. So you see, I did do these little lines here to represent his neck. It's okay. I mean, maybe ideally I wouldn't have had that. Like I would have just gone to pure white. But I think you need to show that he has a bit of a neck and that it's separating from his torso. So maybe what I'll do is, even though I said before I didn't want to kind of besmirch this white area, I am going to put just a little bit of very diluted tone in here. And that helps just to give a sense that his head is sticking out from his body, and down here that his chest is going back into the shadow underneath him. So, but I want to keep these feet basically pure, but then this down here, this little bit of shading here is important, I think, to show that this foot is kind of underneath him. And I'm going to leave the toes. I mean, I'll put a bit underneath here. I could put his shadow underneath him. I just not sure if I want to do that yet. But I am going to now darken this tail, and I am going to put more tone on it to soften it, because these lines, see how these lines are still a little bit wet, and when I'm going over them with water, they are just softening the edges, so it's not a hard line. And again, that's different than you would get with a drawing pen, like a fine liner. You know, you're able to get this point between being waterproof and being activated by water, diluted. So if you're new to draw with me, I don't usually do this kind of a detailed drawing and try and strive for a fair amount of accuracy like I am today. But this is the mood that I'm in today. I'm in this mood of wanting to take my time with a drawing, you know, and just relax into it, not feel the stress that you can feel stressful when you're like, oh, how do I do this? And I'm really, you know, this is a kind of drawing that it's just calming because it's you building it up bit by bit. All right, so I think his eyes seem like they're pretty much dry. So I can probably go in a bit and draw in the pupils. And that will be a big moment because that will help to make him wake up, make him come alive, make him stop looking like a zombie. And the same with his nose. I think I'm going to do the nose next. So I'm going to take my dip pen, make sure it's clean. Dipped it in water, and now I'm going to just dry it off. And now I'm going to take, what was it, the color that I used? Was it scarlet? Or was it vermilion? I forget. Let me look back on this. You see, this is why it's helpful. It was scarlet. It's helpful to have a little guide like that so you know what you're working with. Now I'm going to take my dip pen here. Just dip it into that scarlet, and I'm going to try and draw these nostrils reasonably accurately. And see, again, if I'd drawn this with black ink, let's say, I wouldn't be able to get this sort of subtlety of the nostrils, because if he had big black nostrils, it just wouldn't be as cute. He would look a bit more like a mouth-breathing dragon. But now he's got just so subtle nostrils. He has nostrils, but they're not overwhelmingly nostrilian, as it were. All right, so again, combination of dip pen and brush working to my advantage. We have time. We have 10 more minutes, so I can do a little bit more. Here's another thought, which is I'm going to try and put in a little bit more. You see how like this area here just comes down a bit, and it has these rows of kind of whisker holes. So I'm putting those in like really, really subtly. I don't know if you can even see them on camera, but they're nice little nostril holes. I mean, nostril holes, whisker holes. You know, like where the whiskers are put in at the factory. And then this area in here needs to be darker. Just sort of set his eye kind of back into his head a bit more, and to show kind of the dimensions of his skull. Now, here's a thought that I may come to regret, but I'm kind of thinking I'm going to make a little mixture of brown black. So it's a little bit of brown, a little bit of black, and a little bit of blue. I don't know if you can see that I'm mixing it off here to the side. And I think that, again, might be something I come to rue, but might work. Let's test what that looks like. Yeah, see, it's almost like a Payne's gray that I just mixed. And I'm thinking that that might help in here to just have some more shadow. Because he is kind of lit from the side. Right? The light is coming from this side more or less on him. And this will help to make him just look a bit more 3D. I mentioned his stripes before. Sort of accomplished that, I think, by just having these rows of hatches. Kind of gives you the sense that he's striped, but maybe I'll add to that here with a little bit more of just darker areas that make him feel like he's a bit more stripy. A little tiny bit here. It's a little scary. See, that feels a bit strong, so I think I can go in and just dilute it a bit. I can even go in with a paper towel and kind of knock it back, but right now I'm noticing areas that I will notice less once I do the eyes, because your attention will go to the eyes. So this feels more important than I think it will be. All right, should we do the eyes? So those eyes are definitely black. So I'm going to use black ink to draw them in. Now, if you look at them carefully, they are, because they're cat's eyes, they are shaped like cat's eyes. So they're a little tiny little triangle. This is the scariest part of all. Mine's daydreaming a little bit more than the original one is, than the photo is. It's a little bit more like looking into deeper space. Why is that? Is it because this area isn't as dark? I think that's part of what it is. This area here needs to be darker. And then this part of the eye, this top part of the eye is darker too. That will help to push his eye back in. Uh-oh, a little tiny bit of a drip there. A little bit of activation of that pupil. It's okay, I can live with it. All right. So, I'm reasonably happy with that. I don't think I really caught his expression as well as I would like to. Let me see if I can fix that a bit by sharpening up these highlights, sharpening it up a bit. All right, that helped a bit. I don't know that I can totally fix it. And then I'm going to do one more little tiny thing here. I think what I'll do is I'll let this fully dry, and then I'll go in and I'll really fix his nose. I mean, fix these eyes, make them glow a bit more, and fix that bleeding pupil. We'll get there. All right. What about those whiskers? What are we going to do about that? I'm going to try something. I haven't really tried this before. This is Winsor Newton white ink. I haven't really tried it before, so we'll see. This might be the point where you go, oh yeah, and then you totally ruined it by doing that thing with the white ink, but we'll see. Now, I don't have a dark background the way the photo has, so you won't really see those whiskers the same way you would have if I had added color to the background. So that's not bad, though. Actually, they're looking okay. It's subtle, but it's in there. I do like the way that this white is sitting on top of the color behind. It's making me want to add more white ink around his whole thing. Not just these highlights, although that's definitely a good use for the white, because you can give a crisper edge thanks to the dip pen. But also even in here, like I could see using white. Like as part of this color of his thing. This still feels like it needs to be darker in there. This feels like it needs to be darker. I definitely need to do another round once it's fully dry, because we're kind of running out of time. We are, in fact, out of time. Whew. Did you have fun? How's your kitten? Looks different when it's standing up. Yeah. It is. Jen says that looks perfect. Thank you for the pun. So yes, all right. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Let me just wrap things up by reminding you that if you'd like to get your own set of these inks, let us know that you would by writing to us at DWM, drawwithme@sketchbookschool.com, and send us your U.S. mailing address. I'd love to see your kittens. Please share them. Please share the kittens so that we can put them on the show next week. And put them on Facebook, hashtag SBS Draw With Me, on Instagram, hashtag SBS Draw With Me, or in the schoolyard. We will find them in one of those places, and we will add them to the show. And tomorrow I have an essay coming out. I write an essay every Friday on dannysessays.com, and you can get it for free by just going there and signing up. I hope you do. And I hope you'll subscribe to this channel so that we can remind you that next Thursday, we're going to get together again and draw, I don't know, maybe we'll draw a puppy, I don't know, or maybe we'll draw an old aardvark, I don't know. We'll figure out something fun. So I look forward to seeing what you've done. And yes, good point, JJ says, make sure your social profiles are public or we can't see them even if you tag us. So if you don't normally share your stuff, make sure that you do. All right, good. Well, thanks again, and I'll see you again next week. Have a great day.